we'll get started. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Angela. I am the Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions and Recruitment. Tonight, we're going to be going over the Masters of Arts in Teaching program at Clarkson University. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started with tonight's presentation. Please mute yourself, especially if you're in a busy area. We want to make sure that none of the background noises interfere with some of the content that we're going to deliver to you tonight. Tonight's presentation is also going to be recorded, so if you'd like to have this as a reference or a refresher, we'll make sure to get that recording out to you for tonight as well. Please feel free to use the chat box. We are going to have a Q&A time at the end, so we want to allow time to deliver you the full presentation, but feel free to put your questions in there, and then we'll answer them at the end, and feel free to unmute yourself at the end if you'd rather ask a question in that manner. So just a couple of housekeeping items for tonight, and we'll get started with the presentation. So just going over a couple of agenda items and who we are and what we'll be discussing tonight. You'll be able to meet Dr. Catherine Snyder, our chair, as well as myself, learn a little bit more about Clarkson, our program, what makes us different than some other teaching programs. We're also going to talk about MAT. We're going to go more in depth about the curriculum, the different timeframes that you can choose from, certifications, as well as you'll hear in some videos and some of our statistics about our student success as well. So lastly, we'll talk about is the admissions process. We'll talk about the documents that you need to apply, what that process looks like, and some deadlines that we'll need you to keep in mind as well. And again, like I said, at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers if there's anything that we didn't deliver in tonight's presentation. So just a couple of very important folks with some pictures that I think are important for our education department. Again, I'm actually co-hosting tonight. Dr. Catherine Snyder will be here. She is our chair and associate professor in the Department of Education. The second important person is Nikki Foley. She is our assistant director in the education department. She is very vital part of the education department and key to our success. She assists with students in placing their residency, certification, an advisor. She wears a lot of different hats, and I think it's important to make sure that she's pointed out tonight because she does so much within the department. And then lastly, you'll see my picture there. Again, I am the Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions and Recruitment, and we'll discuss more about the application timelines and what you need for the admissions purposes. So to start off, the Masters of Arts in Teaching offers a wide variety of certification areas. As you can see, there is listed of all the certification areas that we offer. It ranges from, all the different sciences to math. We even are very lucky within this past year or so, we have been able to add a couple of different certifications such as computer science, business and marketing. We're very proud of those, and technology as well are some of our new certification areas that we're able to offer. These are areas that are growing in the 7 through 12 area. There's a need for teachers in that certification, but we offer quite a few different areas where you're able to certify. And again, at the end, we're more than happy to have you share with us what your area of interest for certification is. So to start off and go over, what are some of the prerequisites? So these prerequisites are things that we are looking for prior to you starting the Masters of Arts in Teaching. So the first thing that we're looking for is for you to have at minimum 30 credits in certification in the area you wish to teach. So the certification areas that I just showed in the prior slide, for you to have 30 credits in biology, technology, Russian, Spanish. The actual nice thing too about our program is that if you at least come to us with 24 credits, and Dr. Catherine Snyder will get more into this with the timeline, we're actually through our program able to assist with providing you the additional 6 credits that you need to get to that 30. So what is often done with this prerequisite is Nikki Foley, who I showed you earlier, and myself, what we often encourage is students when they're applying to also upload their transcript. We're able to take a look to see if there's any gaps, courses that you may need, or if you're fulfilling that full 24 credits that we need. So we do need you to come in with the pedagogy, essentially, and we will give you the tools and resources on how to teach that particular certification area. So that's one of the prerequisites that we'll need. The second is an ed psych course. If you've taken it at your undergrad, you kind of check off that prerequisite. If you have not taken it, do not fret. We offer what's known as a self-study course. It is not tuition charge, and it usually can be completed depending on the timeline that you're looking to start in ahead of time there. So we offer it as a self-study where we will tell you what book you need, what you need to study. We'll administer a test to you, have you take the test, and we check that off as well. If you're unsure about the ed psych, if you have it previously as a course, again, this is something we can take a look at your transcript to make sure that you need as well. One thing I should say about this particular requirement is this requirement is not a requirement to start the application. It is a requirement to start the program. So I don't want you to delay your application at all because you don't have the ed psych course. You can still pursue the application for this particular program, and we'll assist you if you don't have that ed psych prerequisite ahead of time. Now, the third one here is 4 days of observation in person, and now given the pandemic that we're in, we're having that done virtually. This is not something that you'll need to set up yourself. This is something that Nikki Foley will work with you on so that you're able to get into a classroom, observe a teacher, and again, that may be in person or given the landscape that we're currently in virtually as well. The other prerequisite is we do need 1 semester of an undergraduate language for you to take prior as well. It can be any language essentially, but you do need to have at least 1 semester of an undergraduate language prior. The last requirement is we are looking typically for a GPA of a 3.0 or higher. We are looking for as part of the prerequisites, and I should say this is also your overall GPA we're looking at. For that particular 3.0.
And Angela, can you stay on that slide for just a
Sure.
second? I wanted to point out, because we do have, it looks like Alexandra is Spanish, so the 1 semester of undergraduate language study is a requirement for all the disciplines. Of course, if you're a world language candidate, then we go back to column 1, which means you need 30 credits in that discipline. So Angela mentioned that you need 30 credits in your content area to come into the program. So that's, or 24 as she explained. So that would be 24 credits in chemistry or 24 credits in computer science or Spanish. And then once you're in the MAT, we take care of the pedagogy in the MAT, and we'll help you bring your level up to 30 credits for the content area if we need to. Okay, thanks, Angela. Okay, so what you have here on this screen is an overview of the MAT program. Angela, is this your slide? Am I cutting in on your territory here, or is this mine?
You are not at all.
Okay, I'll keep going then. All right, so the MAT program can be done in 1, 2, or 3 years. About half of our students usually do the program in 1 year and about half in 2 years. The diagram you have here shows what can be done in 1 year. If you want to do the program in 1 calendar year, you would start in the summer in June with our intensive 6-week program. We're actually right at the midway point right now with our class of 2021. They're in the middle of their intensive summer program. And then you would move into the academic year where you would participate in your residency during the day and work side by side with your mentor, either in a classroom in person or virtually, depending on the situation we're in this coming year. And then in the evenings, you're taking classes with us, and that's the 1-year model. It's very intense. It's full-time graduate school plus a residency. And about half of our students do that. The advantage to the 1 year, of course, is that within 12 months you finish, you graduate with your master's, and you graduate with New York State certification if you're successful on all of the state exams. So it's a very fast path into a great career, and you're only out of the job market for 1 year. Other students, as I said, about half, choose to pursue the degree over 2 years. And if you'd like to pursue the degree over 2 years, you can start in the fall or in the spring. And if you look at the fall and spring semesters on this diagram, you'll notice the courses that are in that kind of lime green color. They're the bottom 3 courses in each column. Students who do the program over 2 years would typically take 2 or 3 of those courses each semester in the first year. And then in the second year, they would jump into the intensive summer program. And in the academic second year, they would do their residency and pick up any of those additional courses that they still needed to. So it's a little bit more reasonable schedule. It's particularly good if you have obligations outside of your graduate work. That's a schedule that can make things work a little bit easier. The trade-off, of course, is you're spending 2 years getting your graduate degree. So you're out of the job market for a little bit more time. But the degree program is pretty flexible. You can do it in 1 year, 2 years, or you can even do it in 1.5. So I think let's keep going. So what makes the Clarkson Master of Arts in Teaching different? First of all, we operate on a cohort model, which means our students move through the program as a group. And even in this online environment, you will get to know your classmates really well. They will become trusted friends and colleagues. And I can personally vouch for that. I'm a graduate of the MAT program from the previous century. And some of my closest friends today are still my MAT classmates. So the cohort model really provides a lot of support for what is a very intense program and an intense profession. And there's a lot of research out there that's been done in education programs as well as medical programs and legal programs, law programs, about how designing a graduate program around a cohort really guarantees student success. So that's important to us. The program was also designed and taught by secondary teachers. So 30 years ago, when this program was designed, it was developed by a committee of higher ed faculty and public school teachers. And so one of our values is that all of our faculty have significant K-12 teaching experience. You will not be taught by anyone who has not managed 130 students and knows what that feels like and what that experience is. More than half of our faculty are current full-time practicing teachers, and those of us who are full-time faculty at Clarkson all have substantial experience. I spent 10 years teaching social studies here in the Capital Region, and the rest of the faculty have similar experience. One of our goals is that our graduates become reflective and effective teachers. And that is, those words are actually taken right out of our mission statement. And if you talk to any of our alumni, the word reflection comes up pretty quickly in the conversation. We want our alums to graduate with the ability to reflect on what they do and become self-advocates for themselves and then advocates also for their students. And of course, the program is aligned with all New York State standards and national disciplinary standards. So whether that's the C3 for social studies or Next Generation for science, we're aligned with all of those disciplinary standards. And then we already talked about the full year residency a little bit. That really is the cornerstone of our program. 30 years ago when this program was developed, the group that developed it received a grant from the National Science Foundation. And it was the early 80s when this work was being done. And at the time, the United States was falling behind the Soviet Union, particularly in math and science teaching. And so the mandate for the group that developed the MAT was to figure out how to create a more effective teacher ed program that could produce teachers that would kind of literally help us beat the Russians. And so those are our origins. And that group of people decided that the best way to create really highly effective teachers is to induct them into the profession in the same way that other professionals are inducted. So for example, medical doctors experience a long period of mentoring and residency. Lawyers do as well. So the first thing that those founders did was they put that full year teaching residency into the MAT program. And 30 years later, that's still the cornerstone of what we do. And it's pretty unique. You won't see this anywhere else. Other programs might say they have a full year residency, but when you dig into it, you find out that, oh, it's 8 weeks in the fall and 8 weeks in the spring, and they're in 2 different locations and things like that. Our residency is from September to June with 1 mentor, where you learn what it's like on the first day of school. You learn that March lasts 3 months. It's the longest month of the year. And then you learn what the craziness is at the end of the year and how you wrap up the school year. And that's one of the reasons why we have a 100% job placement rate, because our employers know that our graduates have experienced the full swing of the academic school year and are prepared to take over their own classrooms. And then finally, the last bullet there, you have a lot of support. Every candidate has their academic advisor. So if you were social studies or Chinese or one of the other languages, I would be your advisor. You also have the university supervisor, who's a retired teacher in your discipline area who mentors you through your whole residency. So that person comes in and visits you every couple of weeks, watches you teach, talks to you about your teaching practice, and gives you feedback and advice. And then, of course, probably the most important person is that mentor teacher. So that's the teacher in the classroom who's hosting you for the year, who you're working with every day. So lots of support. And then I want to point out our accreditation. We're accredited by the Association for Advancing Teacher Quality. This is a brand new accrediting association. It was launched about 2 years ago. And the Clarkson Master of Arts in Teaching program is the first program in New York State to be accredited by this really very rigorous accrediting body. So again, if you're shopping around, looking at other programs, ask about accreditation. That acronym is pronounced AQUIP. Ask if they're AQUIP accredited, because that's an important designation. Oh, so I think we're going to show you a video now, right? With some alums and some information about the program. The cornerstone of the success of the MAT program is the full year internship. And it's really based on a very simple idea. In order to learn how to be a successful teacher, you have to teach. But we don't just put our students in a classroom and ask them to figure it out. We put our students in a classroom with a highly experienced, highly effective mentor teacher. And that's a very complex and time-consuming process that we go through. Every intern has 2 very important people, the supervisor and the mentor. The supervisor is seeing more of the big picture and moving the student along during the school year. And the mentor is there for the day-to-day support.
Right from the beginning, we started off co-teaching. So it was a different experience than you would normally get in a student teaching environment.
My mentor has been really instrumental in helping me plan. She goes through each unit with me, what she used to do, and then I can change, adapt, kind of take what she has, add what I want with whatever the unit is that we're doing.
I think they look at the student's personality and experience and really do a great job of matching that up with a mentor. We spent some time in the summer meeting a couple times before the school year, and then from there the student really is thrown into the classroom from the start. They don't sit in the back of the room. They're in the front with me. They're taking a part of the lesson, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes or half an hour. But the process is great. You know, from day one, we're working hand in hand. We're designing the lessons together. It's not just me creating the lesson for the intern. He or she is right there writing the lesson with me. It's a real collaboration. And that is really what helps these students learn how to be effective teachers.
When a mentee comes into my classroom, we become collaborative right from the get-go. The students come into my classroom and they don't know who the head teacher is and who the mentee is. We start from day one, every single class, we teach together, and we strive for a co-teaching model throughout the whole year. While the mentee will get their own class and be the head of their own class, the students really see us as a partnership, as a team working together.
It inspires these partnerships between teachers and between mentors and interns, and it's so great because everybody has something to teach you and you can learn from everyone. Just a great experience the whole year.
Thank you, Angela. So how do we prepare you for your career before graduation? We offer a lot of services to all of our students. We have one-on-one career consultation. We have an individual who works with our candidates all year long, providing them with job workshops. In fact, I mentioned that we're right at the halfway point with our intensive summer program right now. Yesterday, we had our first jobs workshop. So even though these folks are only 3 weeks into the degree program, they're already starting to think about the job market, what plans they need to make, what decisions they need to make. So we really provide some pretty intensive counseling on the job search. That involves things like how and when do you go to conferences? How do you comport yourselves there? How do you network? What does your portfolio look like? And do you need some help with cover letters? Cover letters aren't always easy to write. Of course, we support you with recommendation letters and references. We also provide you with information on local and national career fairs. And we host alumni panels right at the Capital Region campus. And we also have a mock interview day every year, which is an annual event where we invite administrators from around New York State to come, and we set up panels, and our students who are soon to graduate go through these practice interviews with area administrators. This past year, we had 80 administrators join us because they know that if they come on mock interview day, they get their first look at our candidates who are about to graduate. And we tell them very strictly that they're not allowed to offer any candidates jobs on mock interview day. It's a practice day. But we have had almost every year, we've had administrators follow up with candidates after mock interview day and say, we want you to come in, we want to learn more, we'd like to do a formal interview. And then we also work with candidates on what we call elevator speeches. So if you're at a conference and you're in an elevator with a superintendent at the school that you really want to teach at, you have a 30 to 60 second elevator speech ready to go so that you can address that superintendent and make sure that that individual remembers who you are. So we give you the whole wraparound on how to prepare for the job search. And then how do we support you during your career? Of course, we provide you with ongoing career consultation. That same office is the one that you can call 1 year out, 5 years out, 20 years out from your degree and get the same level of service. You need to revise your resume. You need help with a cover letter or to brush up on your interview skills. That consultation office is there for you. We also host, of course, every year, we have a few different alumni network events. And as an alum, you're offered one free course to update your learning. A lot of alums take advantage of that actually right after the MAT degree to pick up a course that might provide them with an extension certificate of some kind or a second certification. And then we offer you up to 2 additional free courses if you refer people to the program. And we also offer national board support. So let me stop and talk about national board. The National Board for Professional Teaching Standards is an organization that emerged at the same time that the MAT program was being developed. And the organization itself is a result of a couple of documents that were written in the 80s, again, addressing the needs of the education system in the 1980s. Those documents were A Nation at Risk and A Nation Prepared. And in the 1986 document, A Nation Prepared, the recommendation was that teachers need a national board that dictates standards that teachers can test themselves up against so that it would provide a uniform standard across the country. Because as you know, we are a country with 50 systems of education. Right? Education is managed by states' rights. So when you move from one state to another, the certification standards, the teaching standards are often different. National Board supersedes those standards. They supersede in rigor the standards of all 50 states. So it's a process that teachers can put themselves up against. And if they earn certification, they earn the title of being called a National Board Certified Teacher. Those standards, the National Board standards, are the foundation of the MAT program. The second day of the summer program, our candidates read the national board standards and learn about that process. And it is quite rigorous. About 30% of teachers who pursue national board actually achieve it. In New York State, about 1% of the teaching force is national board certified. We have over 20 national board certified teachers on our faculty. So that tells you that we have high expectations for our faculty and our students, and that we all speak the same language and have the same standards in mind when we're teaching and interacting with you, and the same expectations as well. I'm a national board certified teacher. Our entire summer faculty is national board certified. So it's a pretty amazing set of teachers that you'd be interacting with in this program. We also offer lateral and career change counseling. So if you, for example, were working for 5 years at one district and you wanted to move to another, that's what we call lateral career changes. We're there to help you with those kinds of changes. If you want to change careers altogether, or if you decide you want to move into administration or take a different path with your teaching degree, we're there for you. And then probably the most important bullet, I think, for our alumni is that we provide compensation negotiation assistance. That's a conversation that all of us are nervous having, right? So if you get a job offer, give us a call. And the consultation office will role play with you, will work through phrases with you so that you can ask about your compensation and negotiate for the salary that you're really worth. Okay. So these are some statistics that we're particularly proud of here at Clarkson. The first statistic is that 93% of our alumni are still teaching after 5 years. So if we go back to all of our alums who graduated in the last 5 years, 93% are still in the classroom. And that's a pretty amazing statistic in our field. The national average is between 50 and 80%. 50% is more on the side of the high need schools, so high need rural and urban schools. 80% is the average retention rate in low need, often suburban setting schools. But our alums, 93% are still in the field. So that tells me that the students who come to us, they want to teach, and we prepare them well for their career. The next statistic is the 95% first-time pass rate on certification exams. In order to become certified in New York State, you have to pass 3 pretty rigorous certification exams. We support you through those exams. We backward design the content on those exams into our curriculum. So Angela mentioned Nikki Foley, our assistant director, the person who really keeps the trains running for us. She sends out emails and says, okay, folks, now's the time to register for this exam. You're finishing this class. That class is preparing you for this exam. Go register for this exam. And we find that we have a 95% pass rate. Again, the state average on these exams varies between 50 and 85%. And I've seen statistics even lower than that. And it's important to you because you need certification to teach in New York State. It's also a financial burden. If you pass all of these tests the first time, it's going to cost you about $600. If you don't pass them the first time and you need to retake them, you're going to need to pay every single time. So we really feel like it's an obligation on our part to get our students through those exams the first time successfully. And then the next statistic is something that I mentioned. 100% of our faculty have P12 teaching experience. You will interact with no one that hasn't walked in the shoes you want to walk in. And then the percent of alumni hired by September. For the last 4 years, we've been at 100% job placement. We're very proud of that. I can tell you this year, the job placement process is going a little bit more slowly with everything happening at schools, but I checked with our placement office just the other day, and with the class of 2020, so the students who graduated in June, right now 67% of them are hired. So, and that's actually not too far off. Thank you, Matthew. I see the handshake there. That's not too far off from where we usually are. I'd say by midsummer, we're usually closer to about 75%. So being at 67% in this environment, I think is very encouraging. And, you know, one of my reasons for sharing these statistics with you in this level of detail, again, is take notes. If you're looking at other teacher ed programs, ask them questions about these statistics. Ask them what their job placement rate is. Ask them what their job placement rate is in computer science, in business, in chemistry, in English. Ask them those details. And if they can't answer those questions, then I would back away slowly, right? You want to have your relationship with your education program be very transparent. And we will always be transparent with you on our statistics. And I have to apologize, my cat is running around and meowing, so if you hear a strange sound, it's Alice. So she wants to join the program here tonight.
Thank you so much for all that information, Dr. Snyder. So these next two slides are just going to go over some start dates, some application deadlines to keep in mind if you like everything that you've heard early on in today's presentation and you're gearing and ready to start applying. If you're thinking about this upcoming fall, I highly encourage you to start your application now, as we are looking at a deadline of end of July, beginning of August. And the reason for that is we want to make sure your application receives the time and consideration that it deserves, as well as there's quite a bit of follow-up and some other steps that need to be done should you be accepted into the program. And we want to allow enough time for that before the start of the semester. So again, if you're thinking this upcoming fall, I encourage you to start that application. And again, if you have questions, I'll have my contact information at the end of the presentation here. And in the 1 year, if you're thinking about a 1 year program, that's an April 1st deadline. And then if you're thinking about doing the 1.5, which starts in the spring, typically that deadline is November 1st. The reason why for these deadlines is, as I mentioned earlier, so that your application is able to have the time and consideration it deserves. But as we start to receive completed applications, we begin to disperse scholarship. So as that scholarship is dispersed, that pool starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So we want to be able to distribute scholarship to you if you're eligible early on, whereas late applicants may have more limited scholarship funds available to them in their application. So keep these deadlines in mind, as we want to make sure that your application gets the time and consideration it deserves, since you're putting all together these materials as well. So my next slide here goes over all of the admission requirements that we are going to need. So we are going to need an application. Ours is online. It'll have you fill out your basic biodemographical information, your address, name, checking off that the Masters of Arts in Teaching is the program that you're applying for. Second is your statement of purpose. And I'll often tell applicants this is your narrative on the application. This is your chance to have a voice. Everything else kind of speaks for you, your transcripts, your letters of rec, your scores. This allows you to convey to the graduate committee why this particular program, why teaching, and maybe some long-term goals that you have in mind. Typically, this is no more than 2 pages, but it allows you to have a voice on the application. We also like to see your resume. We like to see the professional background that you're bringing. So if you have worked full-time previously, any part-time jobs, or if you're a student coming right out of undergrad, if you did any type of conferences, publications, part-time jobs, all things that we're going to want to see on your resume. In addition, we also require 3 letters of recommendation. Now, Mom and Dad are going to say wonderful things about you, but we ask that you not ask Mom and Dad. We ask that these either be professional or academic references. Typically, we require 1 to at least be from a former professor, so that way they can attest to your academic strengths, and maybe they've seen you from the start of August till the end of the semester and the progression you've made. But we really ask that they be professional references, as they are the best ones to attest to your strengths. We're also going to need all of your transcripts. So if you attended multiple undergrad universities, or if you did community college and then transferred to a 4-year school, we're going to need the transcripts of all of those. I will say with Clarkson, we're very lucky in the fact that we will take unofficial transcripts for reading purposes with your application. What I will often encourage applicants to do is, if you have access to your unofficial, upload those to your application, and then simultaneously also request the official from your college or university. This way you're kind of getting 2 jobs done at once. So we're not waiting for that official to come in. We can move forward with your application for reading purposes with that unofficial. Should you be accepted into the program, we will need that official. And again, if you do that simultaneously, you have already been ahead of the game where we had that official coming and making our way to us. This other requirement here, the GRE or Miller Analogies test, is a requirement by New York State. However, has a little bit of a caveat right now. Given the pandemic that we are in, we are temporarily putting this requirement on hold. That does not mean we are waiving the requirement, but what we are doing is we are trying to be flexible with those that may be applying for the upcoming terms. We know that the testing centers are closed. We at our campus are actually a testing center for the Miller Analogies test, and I'll go into a little bit the difference between the two. But what we're asking students is please apply with all the other requirements that we're going to need, and as part of your acceptance, we will ask you at a later time to take either the Miller Analogies or the GRE test. So again, that requirement's on hold. It's not being waived, but it is something that is part of the application and also required by New York State. So to go over the 2 tests, the GRE is kind of an all-encumbering, verbal, quantitative, whereas the Miller Analogies test is a 1 hour, 125 analogies. So I typically use the example as summer is to hot as winter is to cold. Will be the type of analogies that you'll be given, and as you start to answer them, they progressively get harder. We often encourage applicants to take the Miller Analogies test. One main reason, cost. The GRE, last I look, is running about $250. Cost effective, you kind of check off that mark, as well as if you take it at our campus, you get your score instantly.
Angela, could you repeat the costs? I think you froze up on us for a second there.
I apologize. So the GRE is running about $250, whereas the Miller Analogies is $100. So much more, a little bit more cost effective with the Miller Analogies test. We also offer at our campus, so you could get your unofficial score right then and have that be checked off as part of the requirements there. We also require an interview. Typically, we take a 2-pronged approach with the interview process. And what I mean by that is you will typically meet with Nikki Foley, who we mentioned earlier. You sit down with her in more of an informal interview to kind of discuss what timeline works for you, what your certification area interest is, to go over kind of those logistics. The second interview, we will set you up with a faculty member of that in your certification area. So if you're thinking history, it would be with Dr. Schneider. If you're thinking English, we have another faculty member. So that would be somebody you would sit down with. And if you're an international student, we do require a TOEFL or IELTS as well.